All right, guys, what is up? This is Ryan from elevatecyber. We're here to do another walkthrough of TryHackMe, a CTF box on here. This time we're tackling Alfred. Now, as you can see from the, if you weren't aware from the icon here, this is actually going to involve the Jenkins software. Now, Jenkins is a piece of software that is normally used for CI/CD, which is continuous integration, continuous development. Basically, what it allows the developers to do is to continuously be deploying and either changes to their code and create pipelines and things like that. So it's used in the development cycle for them. But of course, if we can get access to this, then we can deploy our own custom code to spawn a shell and get access to the server that way. That's kind of the idea behind it. And this is a Windows box. The underlying operating system is. So we're actually going to be using Nishang, they specifically tell us, to get that shell using PowerShell Nishang. And never mind, my answer is in here already as I've done this box before. But yeah, so we started off by just scanning the host. And to save myself some time, I didn't run default scripts or anything like that. I was just looking at what was open here. And these are the only 3 ports that are running on the box, as you can see from this answer here. So now let's just go ahead and check out what's going on with these ports, right? There's 2 web servers here, and then you got RDP. 3389 is RDP, if you weren't aware. But let's just go ahead and grab this IP address here. We're going to see what's running on port 80, first of all. And just a little something here. In the background, we can, for good measure, right, is you wanna get the GoBuster scans going in the background to get your recon going on. So if we run GoBuster dir on this and use a user share, seclists, discovery, web content, wrap small words, dot text, give it 50 threads, and extension wise, I'm not exactly sure. Let's see. And yeah, based off this, it looks like it might be an IIS server. So maybe like a ASPX type of deal. So maybe we could say ASPX. And yeah, we'll let that run. I don't know that there's anything even there of interest, but I just want to, in keeping with the methodology of things, I want to show you that way. Now, next thing we're going to do is look at what's on port 8080. And that's where our actual Jenkins server is. So most likely this is where we need to be paying our, spending our time and attention, right? Admin is always a basic check you can try. Of course, I did fat finger it there, right? But that's always a good one to try as a good default. Alternatively, what you could do is go in and look and see what the default password is for Jenkins, if they have any at all. Okay, that was just hanging for a second. But yep, we did get in. And so we're actually logged in as the admin account. So we should have plenty of privileges to do stuff. So knowing what this tool does, I just know that, hey, CI/CD, we can deploy code and things like that. So there's a couple ways to do this, right? And I've never encountered this on OSCP, just full disclosure for you, I have not. But I could definitely see a box, maybe an exam box, maybe a lab box, where there is an instance of Jenkins running to do some maybe brute forcing or whatever to get in as the admin account, and then you get your shell from here. Because similar to a lot of websites that involve an admin account, it's just a matter of knowing, how do I get a shell once I get in? Like once you've gotten to this point already, you basically already won. It's just, do you know how to use this to get a shell, right? You know, Tomcat, right? You can deploy WAR files, so you could just deploy a WAR file with a JSP that connects to your Netcat listener, right? With WordPress and Joomla and all that, if you're an admin account, you can just put some PHP code to connect back to your listener. Similarly, in here, you can just deploy some code to connect back to your listener. So really there's two main ways to do that from here. The first option is a pretty noisy option. What we could do is create a new project and just add a build step to connect back to our listener. And the reason that's noisy is you're literally creating a new project in there and anyone could see it, trace it back to you really easily. The other way that's a little bit less noisy is going into the script console, and you can actually leverage the Groovy language to run code on the underlying operating system. So really either way you want to do it should work here. So I'm going to kill this because we don't need it. I just want to show you for methodology sake. But what I can do is, let's see, we need to use Nishang for sure, right? So I should have that in here somewhere. Let me just see. Actually, it might be just back here in my op directory. Yep. So yep, I have Nishang. And in particular, the one they were calling out, they wanted me to use was, maybe it was somewhere else. Here we go. Invoke PowerShell TCP. I know that's in here somewhere. If I do a grep-r, is it that file? Where is it? Invoke PowerShell. Oh, right. I have to say from where we're currently at, and I know I have it. I know I have it here somewhere. Let's see. I think it might be in shells. Okay, here we go. This one right here. This is what I'm looking for. So what I'll just go ahead and do is I'll copy this to my current directory, home, Kali, TryHackMe, Alfred. And so if I go back there, I'll just make a directory for exploits, and then I'll move this to exploits. So if I take a look at this, I see all this stuff here, right? Typically a pretty easy way to interface with this, you edit the last line to run the command that you want to run. Let's see here. Let me figure out my IP address is first of all. And basically what I can do is I can say invoke PowerShell TCP.ps, actually just like that. And then you want it to run reverse to do a reverse TCP connection. And then you want to say IP address, and then you pass it the IP of your attacker box, and then port, whatever port you want to listen on. I typically go for 9001 out of habit, but yeah, you just do that. You can save and exit there. And yeah, now what we can do is we need to go ahead and start a listener here. So let's go in where we put this in our exploits directory. We do Python 3 m HTTP server. Do it on port 80. Then that will serve it up, because yeah, there's like a two-step process to this. So we're gonna do it the first way. We'll do it the noisy way. I mean, why not? In this environment, doesn't matter which way we do this really. So if we want to do it the noisy way, what we do is we can just go into, I believe it's manage Jenkins. And we need to find where it allows us to add a build step, right? Let's see, it's been a minute since I last had done this one. Let's see, new item. So we want to create a new project, and we'll call it test. And then down here where it says add build step, this is where we'll put the payload to connect back and download the Nishang shell from our system and then connect to our netcat listener. Now, I guess that is another thing. We got to make sure that we have our listener running here. So we'll do netcat lvnp 9001. Remember, that's what we specified. So what we can do is we will need to tell it, let's see, execute Windows batch command is what we want to do in this case. Pretty important there. And this one's going to come right out of my notes. And this is the command you'd use to connect back. So you're running PowerShell on the underlying operating system on our target box, basically, to download, of course, here I'm going to need to modify this for our situation. So grab the IP of our box. And we probably should have renamed this. Would have made it a little bit easier, but oh well, not too big of a deal there. But here's where we make our modifications. And we need to say that this is the file we're trying to grab, rather than this other one here. And then as well, we need to change the IP address here. And we'll go ahead and run this one. Save and apply. So if we go here, we'll see the new one that we created. Should be able to run it. We'll see if we can get a connection back. We'll see if it hits our server and stuff. So it looks like it still hasn't ran. Normally I do remember being a little quicker. Yeah, so it is scheduled to build. It is being a little bit slow at the moment. Oh, okay. Oh, it's hanging because we have our shell open. That's why. Didn't realize that, of course. So yep, you see here it hit our server and grabbed the shell, the PowerShell script, and then it executed it and connect back to our listener. Right? So we are the Bruce account at the moment. And so now we need to look to do some privilege escalation. Now, as this is a TryHackMe CTF box, we can definitely use the stuff here. Now, this user.text flag, we would just go into, maybe you guys don't know Windows so much. The way you would typically do this, right, is you go, let's go back quite a bit. The flags are typically located in users, and then the name of the user, so Bruce, and then desktop. And then to actually read the contents of this, you use type. Type is basically the Windows version of cat. Though I am in PowerShell, right? Since I'm in PowerShell, cat will work as well because it's an alias. But if I was just in a regular cmd.exe, then I would need to use type instead of cat. But there you go. And so I can get the user flag. And then let's look here to see what else it wants us to do. In this case, it actually wants us to switch to metasploit because it makes it a little bit easier to... Basically, they're going to have us do a rotten potato, but if you have a metasploit shell, you can use one of their built-in modules to do it automatically. So we'll just follow along here with that. But if you want to do this manually, you would need to do rotten potato or rogue potato, juicy potato, something like that, right? And if you're not sure what that is, go ahead and look it up. There's a lot of information and videos out there for that stuff. But yeah, what it wants us to do is create a MSF Venom payload, because we're going to migrate this over to meterpreter. So this is something cool to know how to do, is the fact that you could take a regular netcat shell and you can migrate it into a meterpreter shell as well. So we'll go ahead, and they were kind enough to tell us exactly what type of operating system we're dealing with. This is a 32-bit system. You see this x86 here. And we'll only have to put in our own IP and port that we want to use and name it something. So let's just go ahead and we'll fill in the blanks here with that. So paste this in, and in our case, let's see, copy this. This is our L host. Oops. So we put this in for IP. And for port, we'll just go ahead and use 1337, since this is a more elite shell, if you will, metasploit. And I'll call it elite.exe. Sure, why not? So you do that, and we don't need this anymore, so we can kill this. And just run this command here. We'll give it a minute to run. I'll see what else it's saying here. We're basically generating an encoded x86 64 reverse TCP meterpreter payload. They just encode it to make sure that it's transmitted correctly and evade antivirus. Typically, this wouldn't be sufficient to evade antivirus, modern antivirus at least. But you get the idea, though. So you create the payload, then you just need to download. Yeah, we'll need to download it to the machine. And they even are so kind as to give us the way to do that. And this is, if you don't have this one in your notes already, I would definitely recommend you put this one in your notes. Anytime you have a PowerShell session, you need to download a file like a binary. You know, this is the preferred way to do it. This is the easiest way to do it. Is just run this command here. So if we come back here, we see that that was created. So we can go ahead and relaunch our web server because we're about to need it again. And if we come back here, we'll copy this. Need to make a little modification to it, right? We'll put in the IP address of our system, and we're running on port 80, so we don't need to worry about the port there. It'll just assume port 80 if we don't specify. And we'll have to change the name here. We call it elite.exe. And yeah, we can make it output with the same name. Why not? And so we'll go ahead and copy this now because it's complete. And the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to, well, let's just go ahead and transfer this first. So we should see it, grab it there. Yep, we saw the request. And since we are in our user account on the desktop, we're perfectly fine to put it here. Of course, if there's a real world scenario, you don't want to put your stuff on really you want to avoid putting things on disk altogether. And most certainly you don't want to throw it on their desktop. The user is going to notice that and notice something's going wrong here. Could kind of alert him, tip him off. But in this case, it's a CTF, so it doesn't really matter. This will be a writable directory since we are, in fact, this user, why wouldn't we be able to upload stuff in our home directory and desktop and things like that? So that's why I put it here. But now that we did that, what we can do is we can go and kill this once more, and we can go and we'll just go ahead and start our listener right here. And remember, this is going to be a meterpreter shell here. So we can fire up the MSF console. We're going to start up a multi-handler to handle this connection. So definitely want to make sure we do this before we launch the payload so we can actually have it ready to accept connections. And it's going to be the same level of access and everything. The only difference is it's going to be a meterpreter shell, which is going to give us access to the metasploit stuff, metasploit commands and whatnot. So That's the advantage that we're getting out of that. So we can say use exploit multi-handler. And see, it's set to this generic payload here. We don't want to use that. We want to use this right here. This is going to be the payload we want. So we got to say set payload and give it that. And then set lhost. And I'm really glad I made these notes here. This is definitely very handy. And then we will set our L port as 1337. And I think that's it. Let me just check the options to verify. Everything looks good. So now we'll go ahead and say run. And that will start the reverse TCP handler. And so now that we've done that and it's started, it's listening, we should be good to go ahead and just run this executable. And let's see here. Looks like something did get messed up there, unfortunately. Let's go ahead and run this again. We'll build now. And I might need to actually, let's see here. Go into exploits, and we'll have to start up this server then. Now we're serving that up. See, it failed because it couldn't connect to our server on port 80 to grab the Nishang thing because we didn't have our server running. Now we do, so it should work. And yeah, there we go. I'm not sure what happened trying to run that earlier, but let's go back and users, Bruce, users, Bruce, desktop, and let's see here. Elite exe, hopefully we can get it to work. That's weird. I think that should be how you need to run it. Let's see here. So we have this running, right? Right. We're in the context of PowerShell. So the way we're going to need to do this is say start process and then give it the name. So let's give that a try. So we say start process and elite.exe. There we go. We see one session open down here. And yeah, if we get UID, we're still Bruce. This is just a meterpreter shell. So there we go. We do have our shell at this point. And oh yeah, for getting the size of the payload, when we ran it, it told us, I think it's down in this window, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, when we ran this, it said, hey, we completed it, and this is the final size of the executable file, 73802. And so that's how I got that. And now here for the privilege escalation, it wants you to run whoami/priv, which is a pretty good idea for getting some information on the Windows box once you get access to it in general. Also do like system info and stuff like that, right? So whoami/priv is what it specifically calls out. So I probably need to jump into a shell to do this, would be my guess. Yeah, I could do it up here as well. So right now I'm in the meterpreter context. That's why it didn't know the command. I would have to type shell to drop into a shell to do that, but I have the shell up here anyway, so may as well just look up here. So basically the noteworthy thing is the stuff that's enabled here. SE debug privilege, and especially this SE impersonate privilege. When you see that, I'm automatically thinking, one of the potato exploits. So rotten potato, juicy potato, rogue potato, all that stuff. You can do that in order to elevate your privileges whenever this is enabled. So in this case, we have the meterpreter shell, and the whole point of this was so you don't have to manually do it. If you want to manually do it, you definitely can. I would say check out the most recent potato exploit is Rogue Potato. It's the most up-to-date one. You can use Juicy Potato as well, or Rotten Potato. So, abusing golden privileges. You just grab it off GitHub, and you can read the guide to know exactly how to do it. This is the most recent version, though, this Rogue Potato. And they even have a little demo in here, it looks like, of how you can use it. So there you go. If you want to do it the manual way, check that out. The way they want us to do it here is loading the incognito module. So you're saying, yep, you see these two privileges here are enabled. Let's use the incognito module that will allow us to exploit the vulnerability. So load incognito. So you want to do this within the meterpreter context, by the way. So it's going to load the extension. And once it does that, it's as simple as just typing use incognito. I think, let's see. Please no. Oh, you may need to use incognito if the previous one doesn't work. Okay, it has to do with, I guess if you're using an older version of metasploit, it's use instead of load. But yeah, once you do that, okay, now we have access to some of these extra functionality here, right? List underscore tokens dash G. Let's try that. So this is all about impersonating tokens, right? So see some impersonation tokens available. We want one for an elevated account, right? So let's see. Delegation tokens available. NT authority service. What about system? Let's see here. So typically, yeah, so we'll have like this is the one we want here, right? Impersonate token, built-in administrators. Let's look for that. Ah, okay, right up here. This is what we want here. Built-in administrators, right? Because we don't really care to impersonate any of the lower level accounts. We want to obviously impersonate the high privilege account. So built-in administrators here, and I think they give us the command to do that as well. Impersonate underscore token, built-in administrators. This is the command that we want to run. So now if we run a get UID, we have rooted the box. We are NT authority system. But now one thing it does mention here is that, yeah, even though we have a higher privilege token, we might not actually have the permissions of the user due to the way that Windows handles permissions. Sometimes they'll use a primary token of the process, not the impersonated token. There's a difference. Our impersonated token is NT authority system, but our primary token is actually the user account still. So this is why it's important in that case to get around that. You need to migrate to a process that has the correct permissions. Okay. And, you know, it's saying normally you want to pick a process like, you know, that's not going to get closed out. Like you don't want to necessarily do like their web browser or something, even if that happens to be running with elevated privileges, because if the user closes that, then you'll lose it. You'll lose access, right? So normally any kind of service is pretty good selection here. And if you run PS within the meterpreter context, you can see the different processes. And so to migrate to a process, first of all, you want to make sure that process has the correct, you know, privilege is, right? But then you'd migrate and you would give it the PID, the process ID right here, the first column. And so that is basically how you do that. Maybe we can try one real quick. Oh, there's our executable, as you see. But let's see here. I did see a good candidate a second ago, but I don't know where that went exactly. This might be a good one. So you just need to type migrate and then the PID. And sometimes it'll fail to migrate. It really depends on like the process and a bunch of stuff. But this one did migrate successfully. We're still on T-Authority system, and now we should have a little bit more stability to do things. And if we don't, then we can just migrate to another process that has this running as NT Authority system. So yeah, hopefully this video was of help for you guys running through the CTF here of this Alfred box. Really, in my opinion, a very important thing to know how to do is how do you leverage Jenkins to get a shell. Little bonus for you, if you stuck around at this point in the video, another way that you can get code execution on the system and spawn a shell is, we did it the noisy way, right? We deployed our own project and all that stuff. Now, if you want to do this in a bit of a more like less noisy way, right? And then let's see, you can go to, let's see if I can remember how to do this. I'll show you the other way, right? If you go into Manage Jenkins, you can go into what is known as this script console. And I think it might be, yep, right here, script console. And in here is where you can actually leverage anything in here. It's using a language called Groovy script, as you see here, and it executes it on the server. Well, you can leverage that to run commands on the underlying operating system. And here's the syntax, right? You can declare a variable, and let's say we want to run like the whoami command, right? It should say that we are Bruce, right? And we need to have it print that out. Print line command.execute. And we want to see the text that gets outputted here. So we run that, then we can see the results, right? And so we could put in whatever we want right here. I don't know if pwd is a command. Yeah, okay. If it fails, then yeah, that's it. Pwd is not a Windows command. We could do like the whoami/priv, I believe as well. Yep, and get that. So if we want to get a shell from this, instead of running a simple command here, we would run the command that we ran earlier, right? Which is this one right here. We basically put this in. And that way it would connect back to our, it would grab our invoke PowerShell TCP, and it would run the script to connect to our listener. So that is the second way to do it, the less noisy way to do it. And yeah, hopefully this video was of help to you guys. If so, if you haven't subscribed already, by all means do that, and then hit the like button as well to help get this message out there and help people out that are on this journey of learning offensive security, working through TryHackMe. Excellent resource. Yeah, let me know what you guys think of this video series down in the comment section below. And if you're eager for more content, walkthrough videos and things like that, go ahead and check out on screen now the playlist to what you need to know for OSCP. And I will see you guys over in those videos. Thanks for watching.